In a significant breakthrough, 3 Israeli hostages are set to be released today by Hamas in exchange for 369 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. This marks the 6th hostage prisoner exchange under the fragile ceasefire deal brokered by Egypt and Qatar. The Israeli captives being freed today have been identified as Alexander Trufanov, Sagui Dekel-Chen, and Yair Horn. They were taken hostage during the October 7th, 2023 attacks when Hamas-led militants launched a large-scale assault on Israeli towns, killing at least 1,139 people and capturing over 200 hostages. In return, Israel will release 369 Palestinian detainees, including 24 prisoners serving life sentences for attacks on Israelis. According to officials, these prisoners will be deported to Egypt as part of the agreement. Hamas has confirmed that it expects indirect negotiations with Israel to resume early next week to discuss the second phase of the ceasefire deal. These talks will determine whether more hostages can be released and whether Israel will agree to ease restrictions on humanitarian aid into Gaza. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is scheduled to visit Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to discuss the ceasefire and broader regional stability. Washington has expressed concern that any breakdown in the truce could lead to further escalation across the region, especially in Lebanon and the occupied West Bank. The United Nations Human Rights Office has urged an immediate halt to Israel's military operations in the northern West Bank, warning of an alarming wave of violence and mass displacement. The European Union has also intensified its diplomatic outreach, calling for a longer-term truce and a renewed effort toward a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The humanitarian toll in Gaza continues to rise. Gaza's health ministry reports that 9 people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes and ground offensives, while 1676 have been wounded. However, the government media office in Gaza estimates that the actual death toll has exceeded 61709, citing thousands of missing people who are now presumed dead under the rubble. The ongoing blockade has made it increasingly difficult for medical supplies and food to reach civilians, raising concerns among international aid organizations. The United Nations has called for unrestricted humanitarian access to Gaza, warning of a potential famine crisis. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers attacked the village of Al-Manya, leaving at least 16 Palestinians injured. This marks another violent escalation in what has been a growing trend of settler attacks in recent months. In Lebanon, a UN peacekeeping commander was injured when Hezbollah supporters set fire to a UN vehicle during protests over Iranian flight restrictions in Beirut. Iranian officials have condemned what they describe as an Israeli-US attempt to pressure Hezbollah, warning that regional conflict could escalate if Lebanon is further destabilized. The situation remains tense, with ongoing diplomatic efforts to extend the ceasefire and prevent a return to full-scale war. Egypt and Qatar continue their role as primary mediators, urging both sides to uphold the truce and commit to further exchanges of prisoners and hostages. The United States, European Union, and the United Nations have also increased pressure on both Hamas and Israel to agree to a more permanent ceasefire arrangement. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel will continue military operations if Hamas does not agree to further concessions. Hamas, in turn, has demanded a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza as a condition for any long-term agreement. With global tensions rising and uncertainty over the future of the ceasefire, all eyes are on the next round of negotiations.